Emily. Okay, let us begin tonight's class. We're going to begin on page number 3. Okay, so a very fascinating, very interesting class tonight. It's a short class because it's the introduction class. It's setting perspective and just explaining certain terminologies and understanding two key aspects of our life, two key emotions that we have, two modes of being that we have. One of them being, we'll just say it in a general way, happiness, and then sadness. I want to use the word depression because depression is very clinical. We're not going to get into any clinical type of stuff, but that is the two main topics that we are going to discuss: negative emotions, positive emotions. And that is going to be the thrust of our conversations today. And we are going to work our way through to this class and the coming classes. How do we get from negative emotions? How do we get from feeling not good, from having our negative sides of us in control? And how do we move to having our good side of us, our positive side of us, our happy side of us in control? And our lives should be more happy lives, more wholesome lives. We're not going to give specific things to do, in a like we're not gonna speak about, for feeling frustration or you have heartache. I'm not gonna get into those things because those are just things that are part of our life. We're gonna have frustrations in our life, we're gonna have heartache in our life, we're gonna have times that we're feeling down. That's just part of life. We can never get rid of those things. But what we are going to discuss is we are going to discuss is the general and the main aspects of them. We're going to go to the core of it. We're going to go to the source of it. And through understanding the source of these emotions and these feelings, we can try to mitigate the negative ones. These things, these negative aspects of our lives are things that we can never take away, but we can influence them and we can stand above them. As we're going to see in the first opening text, a very fascinating letter. The Rebbe writes a letter to an individual who's going through a hard time and it's saying, me, I am having such a hard time in my life, and that's it. I give up. I can't do anything about it. I have all these negative feelings and emotions and thoughts, and that's it. I am succumbing to those negative traits. And the Rebbe says like this. Let me. I'm going to read it slowly, and everybody can pay attention, follow along. It says like this: In our world, everything is a mixture of good and bad. Human beings must choose which aspects they will emphasize, contemplate, and pursue. For in each person's life, there are two possible approaches: to see the good that surrounds us, or the opposite. It is instructive that our sages tell us that Adam was an ingrate. Even before he was banished from the Garden of Eden, where he lived in a literal paradise, he complained about his circumstances. He complained about, oh, the free can't eat from this tree and not that tree, and then his wife was the one who got him to do this, and he was just complaining and complaining. He was in paradise and he was complaining. Conversely, there were Jewish men and women who thanked and blessed the Creator and recited the morning blessings while living through the most horrifying times in the German concentration camps. Ultimately, each individual circumstance will lie somewhere between these two extremes. Needless to say, my intention is not to imply that anyone deserves suffering, God forbid. My point is simply to underscore the reality. The type of lives that we live Whether full of satisfaction and meaning or the opposite depends in large measure on our choices, which dictates whether we will focus on the positive or the negative. In other words, we cannot change the direction of our lives by force. What we could do is we can adjust the sails. What the Rebbe is saying, we have within our capacity to decide how to view the situations that we live in. The situations that we live in, we not necessarily are able to influence it. These Jews who were in concentration camps weren't able to control that they were there, they were forced there. But what they were able to control was how they would have their mind, their feelings. They're able to be thankful for being up in the morning. The other hand, we could be living in a literal paradise and have everything we want and need, and yet we can still be in a mode of not being thankful and always being needy and complaining and so on and so forth. So that aspect we have control over. And that's what we're going to try to accomplish today. We're not going to speak about how to take care of different health conditions. We're not going to try to figure out how to, make more money. We're not going to try to do any of those types of things. We're just going to focus on ourselves and how we can adjust our mindset. It's a very important thing because the mindset, as we will see, is vital to how we act and behave as we will discuss today in class. But first, let's see what the definitions are of negative and positive emotions. So we turn to this definition over here, text number 2. I'm going to read it slowly so everybody can hear. Let's first get the definitions properly, correct? And then we could understand how we could, control them or influence them. Negative emotions such as fear, sadness, shame, anger, contempt, guilt, disgust, anxiety, disappointment, embarrassment, loneliness, envy, and hatred share share the property of involving an appraisal that something is wrong. One's well-being is threatened. One's goals have to be abandoned. One lacks what one desires. One views oneself as wrong or as not projecting the desired appearance to others and so on. That's the negative side. Negative emotions, a whole list, tons of negative emotions. In contrast, positive emotions include happiness, gratitude, pride, love, relief, hope, and so on. Involve appraisals that one is meeting one's goals, that a bad event has not come to pass, that one is meeting or exceeding one's own standards, that one's relationship with another is secure, and so on. In short, negative emotions are uncomfortable and make us feel bad. Positive emotions are pleasant and make us feel good. Okay, these are the definitions of just the clinical and the dictionary way of this, the way the person puts it, of the difference between negative emotions and positive emotions. Okay, continuing along. So now that we know what these negative emotions are and what these positive emotions are, let's see in text number 3.8. But before we get to page number 8, let me just give a little bit of an introduction. What are we trying to do here tonight and for the next few weeks? What we're trying to do here tonight is to move from the negative emotions to the positive emotions. The question is, why? Why is this a something that is necessarily a Jewish topic, a Torah topic? What does this have to do with Torah? What does it have to do with Judaism? Yeah, we all want to feel good. We all want to be happy. We all want to have these good, positive feelings and these good, positive emotions. But historically, until the first Chabad Rebbe came around and wrote the book called the Tanya, which we are going to be discussing tonight and studying from tonight and in the coming weeks, the Jewish approach was actually, being that we are in exile, because we are not in Jerusalem, because we are not in Israel, because the world has not come to its full perfection, we are in exile. We are actually not necessarily always supposed to be in a joyful way. We're not always supposed to feel positive and uplifted and good. The world you look around, maybe, we're in exile. We're not in its over, the world is not in its ultimate stage. That was the approach of Jewish philosophy and Jewish religion and Jewish communities throughout the ages since we were exiled. Comes the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, and he writes a book called the Tanya. He writes a book, and he said one of the very fascinating things that he says is that we need to have joy, we need to have simcha, we need to be happy. But why? Why do we need to be happy? And he explains as follows. He says, take for an example, you have two wrestlers, two people wrestling inside a cage. You have an individual who is very strong, very large, very powerful. And then you have an individual who looks weak and small. Who do you think is going to win the wrestling match? We all know. Well, if we all know what would be the natural answer is the strong person, the athletic person, the person who looks like he's built, the person who's weak and small is obviously going to lose. The Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, writes not so fast. And he writes like this, not so fast. Let me read what he writes. When attempting to be victorious over a physical opponent, such as in the case of two individuals who are wrestling with each other, each one striving to fell to the other, to overwin the other, one who is lazy and sluggish will be easily defeated and will fall, even if that individual is stronger than the other. It is exactly so in the struggle against one's negative impulses. And we are going to continue. This is in the middle of a paragraph. We're going to stop for a second. In other words, you would think that the person who's the most strong will win. But let's say the person who's the most strong in this, the strong person in this competition, he's lazy, he's tired, he's sluggish, he's not in the mood, he's not excited right now. The person who is seemingly and looks weaker and looks smaller, he's happy, he's excited, he's motivated, he's ready to go. He will most probably win, and he will most likely win. The person who is sluggish and lazy and uninterested and unmotivated and uninspired will lose this race. A look at a take for an example. You see two cars that are about to go on a drag race. Go to the drag race. You see a Ferrari, and you see a 1990 Chevy car. Who's going to win the race? The Ferrari goes 0 to 103 seconds. I put my money on the Ferrari. The race begins. The old beaten up Chevy is already ahead. Why? You have a beautiful car. It could go very fast. There's one issue. It doesn't have any gasoline in the Ferrari. Obviously, it's not going to make it too far. It's going to lose. Energy, excitement, the opposite of laziness, is the fuel, is the gas. Continuing along in text 3b, it is exactly so in the struggle against one's negative impulses. It is impossible to conquer them with laziness and sluggishness, which originate in negative emotion, and in the heart, and in a heart that is numb like a stone. There's no such thing, the Alter Rebbe says, the first Chabad Rebbe says, there's no such thing as a lazy person. A, the person is not a lazy person. Laziness is a symptom of something else, of something deeper, of negative emotions, of not being happy, of not feeling motivated, of not feeling inspired, of not being a happy person. For an example, just to give an example, find the most lazy person that you know and say, Mr. I have something for you. I have 2 tickets for you and a friend, spouse, whoever you want, on a full paid vacation to Hawaii. Cruise ship there, hotels there, flights back, 10 days, hotels, everything is covered. There's only one condition. Today is Tuesday, 6:48. Wednesday at 6 a.m., the flight is leaving from Phoenix International Airport. You have less than 12 hours to get to the airport. To pack, make sure you have all your stuff, everything. You have to be there at 6 a.m. The flight's taking off at 6 a.m. That means You have to be there 2 hours before. That means you have to leave 2 hours before that. That means you have to be out of here by before 2 in the morning. This person who is the most lazy person that you know will be in the airport in Phoenix at 6 a.m. Well, he's a lazy person. No, he's not lazy. He's just not motivated. He's not excited. He's not happy. He there's something missing. Laziness is just a symptom of negative emotions, of being unmotivated and uninspired. Same thing as with a diet. Someone who's on a diet, when eventually the person's diet doesn't diet forever. Yeah, let's say a person who doesn't diet forever. What happens that he's breaking the diet? Is it a day that he comes home and he's like, today was the best day I ever had. Today was the most amazing day of my life, and I'm going to eat everything in the kitchen. Or was it today was the worst, I this and that, and I have so many problems and all these different things, and I'm so sad. And this, when you sit down and you break your diet. We all know that the person who is the sad person who's having negative emotions, negative feelings, and coming from a toxic environment, and all these things, feeling sluggish and down, he's the person who's going to break the diet. Someone who's feeling inspired and happy and motivated and having positive feelings, he's not breaking the diet. Continuing along, rather, text 3C, rather, conquering one's negative impulses requires alacrity, which derives from positive emotion and from a heart that is free and cleansed from any trace of worry and negative emotion whatsoever. Okay? When we are excited and happy, and we are in a positive space, and we are in a happy space, then our negative impulses, our negative emotions have no space. They can now, when laziness is away, all these different things fall away. Like this text form. There is no biblical commandment mandating that we be joyful. Likewise, negative emotions is not prescribed by any biblical prohibition, but joy accomplishes what no mitzvah can accomplish. And negative emotion causes greater damage than any sin. Having negative emotions, having negative feelings can lead to really not good stuff. But having happiness and joy, that is the greatest mitzvah. And this is something that that the Chabad Rebbe in Tanya introduces, that our entire life and not only when we're on Shabbat are we happy, not only when we are praying are we happy, not only when we are studying Torah are we happy, our whole entire life has to be filled with happiness. It's like the thing, like many Jews mistaken that Yom Kippur is the most holy day of the year. Purim, and that's a day when we get dressed up and we music and we drink and we say l'chaim. The opposite. The holiest day of the year is a day we're joyful. The other mistake, that these are things Judaism is the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe introduces in Tani that the most important part of Judaism is happiness. When you're happy, when you're feeling good, when you're feeling positive, that's when you can conquer your negative emotions. That's when you can fulfill what it says in the Torah. Okay, continuing along. Let's see text 5 as just, and we're going to be, as we brought so many quotes from Tanya, from this book that the Alter Rebbe wrote, that the first Chabad Rebbe wrote. Let's see exactly what the Tanya is. In the introduction to the Tanya was written in 1796. The Tanya took 20, this Rebbe Shneur Zalman took 20 years to write the Tanya. Every word, every letter, every line, he ensured was perfect and exact. The Tanya is much different. This book is much different than any other book in Jewish philosophy, and he explains in the foreword exactly what the purpose of the Tanya is and how it came to be. So he writes like this: I address those who know me well. Each and every member of the Hasidic community. This is written in the late 1700s in Russia, in Eastern Europe. I address those who know me well, each and every member of the Hasidic community who lives in our land and in adjacent lands. Those with whom I have had frequent warm conversations and who reveal to me all their secrets of their hearts and minds and all that pertains to their heartfelt service of God. To them I direct my words in this work, entitled Lakute Amarim, a compilation of discourses. This work is comprised of responses to the many questions frequently posed by Hasidim in our land, seeking advice and moral guidance in the servants of God, each according to their spiritual situation. Time no longer permits me to reply to everyone individually and in detail. Furthermore, I record these ideas because people tend to forget the response I gave them. I have therefore recorded all the replies to all the questions to be preserved for perpetuity and to be readily available to all. There was no longer any need for people to press to be admitted to talk to me in private. For in this work, everyone can find counsel to soothe their soul and proper guidance on any matter that the one finds difficult in the service of God. The Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, he was the Rebbe in Russia, was known as the whole area of Russia, Ukraine, Poland, Lithuania. Tens of thousands of Jews would trek to his home and seek guidance and counsel. Eventually, he couldn't answer anymore. It was too much for him. He didn't have time in his day. So he sat down and he wrote a book. He collected all of the answers that he's answered people on questions, ranged thousands and tens of thousands of questions that were posed to him. And he wrote a book of 53 chapters, answering all questions that someone could ask about everything in life. The chapters that we are learning today are for chapters that discuss people that have a problem with joy and depression and have motivation issues and embarrassment and all these different things. And tonight we've discussed a few of his from his book, and we're going to discuss now another, as we're closing up, another few more quotes from the Tanya. These are fundamental quotes which are going to be helpful for us in our lives and for the future classes that we are going to have. So, in the beginning of Tanya, in the beginning of this book that he writes, he lays the foundation of his book. The foundation is like this. He brings a quote. I'm going to read it slowly so everybody can hear. Rabbi Chaim Vital writes in a book called Sharei HaKadosh, on page 13, text 6a, that each of us, whether righteous or wicked, has two souls, two distinct life forces. As it is written, I have created souls. One life force originates in unholiness, and all negative character traits stem from this life force. All negative character traits stem from this life force. Now, this is a revolutionary idea that is brought in time. That what? That in each and every single individual person, there is two completely different life forces. Okay, that's number one, and we're going to discuss this a little bit more in a few minutes. But he continues. This life force, which he is talking about here, the negative life force, the life force which is known as the Nefesh HaBahamis, one's life force originates in unholiness, and all negative character traits stem from this life force. This life force is also the source of good character traits, such as mercy and benevolence. In other words, he says something fascinating. There are two life forces. Right now, he's discussing the negative life force. And he says that in this negative life force, this force that originates in unholiness, also has within it, this is also the source of good character traits. Good character traits come from the negative life force. Obviously, we're missing some type of definition here. How could there be good character traits coming from this unholy source, from this negative, from this negative soul? If we said that there's two souls, there's a good soul and there's a not good soul, how could he then go and say that the life force is a source of good character? He continues, the second life force is a part of God above, literally. And this is the soul, this is the second soul, the second life force within a person, which this is a source of good and holiness. And it's the good life, the godly life force. Let me elaborate on this because this is the crux of the entire matter. This is literally the crux of the whole story. We have within us two souls. We'll call it the natural soul, the soul that's neutral, natural, the soul that we are born with. Then we have the soul, which is known as the nefesh elikis, the godly soul. There is a overlap. There could be an overlap between these two souls, because the ungodly soul, the soul which we call sometimes the animal soul, because why is it called the animal soul? Because its drive is for itself, for self-preservation, for self-gratification. It's all about itself. One soul, the first soul, the negative soul, the animal soul, not necessarily negative, it's just about himself. For an example, from this soul could also come the character traits of mercy. Why would the negative soul, why would this soul, why would we say this soul would have mercy? Because mercy sometimes can feel good. Being nice to another person can feel good. Helping out another person can feel good. So he does it. The godly soul doesn't do anything for itself. Everything about the godly soul is focused on godliness. So in Tanya and in Chassidus and in our lives, there are two sides to us. There are two completely distinct and different sides of us. There is the part of us which is completely focused on godliness, not ourselves. The mission, godliness. Even when he eats, when we eat, he's eating in order to have strength to serve God. He's helping another person, not because it feels good to help someone else, but because that's what God wants. Yes, the animal soul, the natural soul, and the neutral soul will also want to help another person, but he's not helping the other person because that's what God wants or because it's a holy or spiritual thing. He wants to help another person. He's having mercy on another person. He's being kind to another person because that makes him feel good, because that makes him feel good. So you can have the same act. You can have the same act of helping someone. And it can either come from the animal soul, from the natural soul, from the neutral soul, from the self-preservation soul, or it could come from the godly soul. The same action could come from either soul. And it is our job and it is our task to shift our mindset and to shift our intentions and to shift how we think and how we feel. That the reason why we're doing something is not because it feels good, not for self gratification, not to receive rewards, not to feel good, but because this is holy and this is what God wants. And when we do it that way, then our godly soul is what's in control and that's what is in charge. It's not the godly soul is the opposite of being self-centered. It's always doing for someone else, not for himself. He's not doing anything for himself. He's doing it for the other person, pure kindness. Nothing about himself. It's like having a computer. You could say that you have a computer. A person is like a computer screen. A computer screen connected to two computers. We are the screen, we are the mouse, we are the keyboard. And we have within us two hard drives, two computers. We can either be plugged in to the computer of the godly soul, or we could be plugged into the other computer. It's just a matter of mindset. It's just a matter of feeling what is the reason why I am doing this? Am I doing this for godly purposes? Am I doing this for the other person, or am I doing it for myself? Okay. Quote in text 7, page 16, as we are closing off for tonight. It says like this: those who are humble shall continuously rejoice in God. This is a quote from Isaiah. It says, those who are humble shall continuously rejoice in God. What does it mean to someone that's humble? Someone that's humble doesn't necessarily mean someone that's meek or weak or someone that's a pushover. Someone that's humble means someone that has created space for someone else. He's not self-centered. He's not focused on himself the whole time. That is the person that is going to rejoice in God. Someone that is not only thinking about himself. Someone that's not only focused on himself. He has created place for God. And at all times, we have this struggle. In every part of our lives, in every single thing we do, are we doing this for ourselves, for our own satisfaction, for our own gratification, for our own ego, or are we doing this for a higher purpose, for a higher reason? And this translates in every aspect of our life. As we will see as we close off tonight with the last two texts of tonight, not too much left, short one. There is a concept called imposter syndrome, which could be translated into many different aspects of our life. Doesn't necessarily have to be taken to the extreme as it is brought in this text, but we will read the text and this is could be very relevant in all different aspects of our life. Have you ever felt like you don't belong, like your friends or colleagues are going to discover you're a fraud and you don't actually deserve your job and accomplishments? If so, you're in good company. These feelings are known as imposter syndrome, or what psychologists often call imposter phenomenon. An estimated 70% of people experience these imposter feelings at some point in their lives. According to a review article published in the International Journal of Behavioral Science, imposter syndrome affects all kinds of people from all parts of life. Women, men, medical students, marketing managers, actors, and executives. Imposter syndrome can apply to anyone who isn't able to internalize and own their successes, as says psychologist Andrew Ervin. Imposter syndrome experts Valerie Young, who is the author of the book on the subject, The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women, who has found patterns in people who experience imposter feelings. Perfectionists set extremely high expectations for themselves, and even if they meet 99% of their goals, they're going to feel like failures, and small mistakes will make them question their own competence. This takes it very extreme, but this could be in any part of our lives. We feel like we're being nice to someone, but we say to ourselves, yesterday I was so not nice to this person. It feels fake that I'm being nice to this person. Why am I, you feel like I was so not nice to this person yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before. I'm all of a sudden coming with a card. I'm all of a sudden coming and being nice to the person, smiling to this person. Even if you are smiling to the person, even if you are being nice to that person, it creates this doubt in your heart. You're bogging yourself down. You feel like your niceness is fake. You feel like you're not being nice is fake. You just feel like everything about you is not true. You say, yesterday I was doing all these different things wrong. I was looking at not good stuff. And all of a sudden, I'm going to come tonight. I'm going to study Torah. Who am I fooling? Who am I fooling? What, when we're dumb and all of a sudden pray on Shabbos? What was last Shabbos did I pray? No, we all feel this. We feel like we are fooling those around us and we're fooling ourselves. So what's the point of the whole thing? And it just creates this negative tension and emotion. It's not necessarily have to be in the way of that they're bringing it here and have in your job and your successes and your accomplishments. That's just a very um, unique situation. But this type of feeling could translate in all different aspects of our lives. Here we have a very interesting quote as we close up for tonight with in Genesis. In Genesis, it says like this, page 18. With Rebecca. Rebecca had within her when she was pregnant, text 9a, she was pregnant, and the children struggled within her, and she said, if so, why did I desire to conceive? And she went to seek divine counsel. What happened to Rebecca when she was walking by a there was in the time of Rebecca that there were synagogues back then. When she walked by the synagogue, she would feel kicking and kicking and kicking, felt like the baby wanted to come out. When she would walk by a church, she felt kicking, kicking, kicking. It felt like the baby wanted to come out. She's like, what type of child is this? It was not even worth it for me to get to conceive and have children. She wasn't able to have children for a very long time. And then all of a sudden she gets pregnant. And she's like, what was this all worth? The whole, wherever I'm going in front of a synagogue, there's kicking, in front of a church, there's kicking. The baby's getting excited and wants to leave. So she goes to receive counsel. Who does she go to receive counsel by? Noah's son was still around, and Noah's son had a school, and he was like the rabbi of the generation. She came to seek his advice. So God said to her through Noah's son Shem, two nations are in your belly. Two kingdoms will separate from your womb. One kingdom will always be mightier than the other kingdom, and eventually the elder will serve the younger. In other words, she finds out that she has twins. And one twin is kicking by the church, kid is kicking the by the synagogues. And then she became happy. Questions, well, all of a sudden she's happy. She's happy that she's going to have a child that's very excited about church, going to church and doing things that were not part of her upbringing and religion. What was she happy? How could that make her happy? Maybe she wasn't happy, but how could she be consoled? It is explained that what consoled her was that it was better for her that she was having children that weren't confused and weren't unsure of what they wanted. One day he wants a synagogue, one day he wants this, one day he wants that. That's how, what type of authenticity is that? It made her calmer that there is authenticity here. It's two different people. And it is explained in Chassidus, that this is what we have within ourselves. We have within ourselves Esau, the full body, the full Esau within ourselves, and we have the full Jacob within ourselves, Isaac within ourselves, sorry. And these two people are in us. Obviously, not, they're types. We have one part of us which wants to study Torah and do mitzvahs. We have one part of us that doesn't, that wants the opposite of that. And in each time, it's authentically that way. In other words, there's no such thing, according to the Tanya, according to Chassidus, there's no such thing as being an imposter. We are never an imposter. When we are doing good, that good that we are doing is complete because it's being done with the godly soul. And when we are doing something wrong, that is us completely because we have within each and every one of us not one person, like psychologists think that there's one person, there's one brain, there's one heart, there's one inclination, and this inclination is being pulled to all different sides, and therefore there's turmoil and there's tension. And we try to, when we're struggling the whole time, how do we control this? No, that's not the way it is. Within each and every one of us, there are two parts to us. There are two computers. There is the Esau computer. There is this that life force. And when we do something wrong, we are authentically doing it. When we do something good, we are totally and completely doing it, not being an imposter. So even if your whole life, and even if your whole week, your whole month, your whole year, you are on the side of the negative, you're on the side of the Esau, you're on the side of not doing good. And then all of a sudden you do something good. It's complete, it's true, and it's real. It's not fake. It's completely you. It's completely who you are. Okay. Let's finish off with the last quote for tonight, page 19, text 10. Do not be upset or dejected while serving God in prayer, for it ought to be a joyous experience. On the contrary, intensify your efforts and focus your energy to concentrate on your prayer with increased joy and gladness. Understand that the foreign thoughts that has entered your mind derives from the natural soul, which wages war against the divine soul within all struggles. Do not ascribe to the commonly held error that a foreign thought is evidence that your prayer is worthless, and that and that if your prayer was proper, no foreign thoughts would intrude. This would be true if you possessed only one soul, a single soul that both prays as well as experiences the foreign thoughts. The deepest truth, however, is that you have two souls that wage war against each other. And by being happy, and by being inspired, and by being in a good mood, And by feeling motivated, your holy soul will always win the negative soul by being the opposite of sluggish, the opposite of lazy. By being happy and motivated and inspired, we will win and we will be victorious over those negative emotions. And our positive emotions and positive feelings will prevail, which will ultimately lead us to not being lazy and not feeling bad about stuff and not feeling shame because we are happy, we are motivated, we are inspired, and we are acting with our good soul. Thus concludes tonight's class. It was a shorter class tonight. Next week, we will continue along these lines and getting a little bit more detailed. Now, this was just an introduction. We have to understand the two souls and the two sides of us. Why is it important to have this positive feelings? Why is it important to be happy? Not to be dejected when you have negative feelings. And next week's we will go deeper into exactly the specifics of our day-to-day lives and struggles. Thank you everyone for joining on Zoom and in person. We will see you, God willing, next week. Have a good night and stay safe.